So, have you ever had this experience where you're just so clear about the people that you care about and you assume that they know that that you care about them? And then you say something like, "Well, you know I care about you." And it turns out that they don't necessarily know that. So today, we're going to talk about some really practical ways that you can demonstrate that you care about people. Hi everyone, it's Ann O'Connor. I am here with you from Metamorphics, where we help people become who they want to be. And the reason I use the word become who you want to be in my tagline for my company is because I feel like life is just a process of becoming, right? And that's never really at the end of that. We're always in a place where we can just be. But what are we becoming? Because we're always becoming something. So today I want to talk about how it is that we can become somebody who demonstrates our care in really tangible ways. So there's a disconnect sometimes between what we think we are feeling, or what we're feeling, and what we think we're demonstrating, and the actual impact that we're having on other people. So, for example, I was listening to this woman the other day, and she was talking about how much she cares about her grandchildren. And she had gone out and she had went to the store. She purchased all these different clothing, lots of different toys, different things. She brought them over, and her daughter, the mother of these grandchildren, was like, "You know what, Mom? No, actually, no. That is not what we need. And can you please just take that stuff back?" And the grandmother in this case was so upset. She was so outraged. Like, how could she not accept this from me? And what is that about? And why is she keeping my love from my grandchildren? And doesn't she know that I care about her? So, there's a lot of different ways that we can express our care, and a lot of different ways we can express our love. Some of them land really well, and some of them, they just don't work. And so, as with all things, understanding our impact rather than understanding what our intention is the way to actually meet people where they're at in our relationships. And this is going to serve you so well, right? Because what we intend is one thing, and it's sometimes very different than what our impact is. And so the more that we can get better at understanding what our impact is and asking people what they need and asking what makes people happy, the better off we're all going to be, and the better our relationships will be. So this is a very useful tool for you to help on that path, to become the person who understands their impact and to understands how to navigate and adjust that in your relationships with people so that you can hit it more than you can miss it. All right, so the first way is to this applies particularly in moments of conversation, right? So, but it can apply across all different kinds of ways. And the first very practical thing that you can do to demonstrate your care for people is to acknowledge them. So, what do I mean when I say acknowledge them? It can go from anything, right? So when I'm talking to my kids, and sometimes they'll be sitting next to me, or else they'll be walking out of the room, and I'll say something and they won't respond, and I'll say acknowledgement, and they know right away, like, "Oh yeah, got it, Mom." And you know what? What's really cool is sometimes they'll use it on me. Like if they're talking to me and I'm distracted about something, and sometimes my oldest daughter will do this thing where she'll say, Mom, Ann. And she, when she gets my attention. So this acknowledgement piece can be really something simple like that. Like, got you, heard you, yep. But it can get a little stickier, right, as things get a little more difficult. So say you're in a conversation with somebody and you're going along and it doesn't seem like they actually heard what you're saying, what you're talking about, right? Have you ever had that kind of situation where you're talking to someone and you say something that you kind of feel is like, "Oh, here's my heart," or "Wow, this is really hard," or you say something that you feel is important. And the response is, oh yeah, that happens to me too, and this is what happened in my circumstance over here, right? So that person has taken your example, and instead of acknowledging for you what's going on, they take it and they reflect on their own experience. So this is something that you can see all over the place. People do this all the time. Most of us are guilty of it, at least some of the time. And so it's something to really watch for. When someone tells you something, they don't actually tell you to hear your story about it. That might come later on in the conversation. But first thing to do is to acknowledge that thing that someone has told you about their experience for them, right? So that might look like, wow, I'm hearing that's really hard for you. Or, wow, that sounds tough. Or, wow, that sounds exciting. Wow, you must have been thrilled. How was that for you? Tell me more about that. Okay, so that's the way that you can acknowledge somebody's experience, is you can keep it about them for a moment. Later on in the conversation, if it's time to move on and you've talked about that person's experience, then maybe you can say, the same thing happened to me. Do you want to hear about how I handled it? And you can always ask about that. But the acknowledgement of what someone says to you when you're in a conversation is such a tangible way to say, I'm with you. I'm here with you right now, and I care about what you're saying, and I'm going to acknowledge it. The other way that we can acknowledge people is when we've hurt them. And it needs more than just yeah, I get that, in a conversation. An acknowledgement in that situation might look like, hey, do you have a minute? I just wanted to pull you aside and say, I was reflecting on our conversation yesterday, and I think that I misspoke when I said da 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 da, and I'm afraid that I hurt you in that. And that's not what I wanted to do. So I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Right? Something that simple, and I know I'm not suggesting that that's easy all the time, but something that simple can repair such damage done in a relationship. And if you know that you've hurt somebody, it's really such an acknowledgement, such a beautiful thing to just acknowledge that. Even if you're not saying you would do it differently, even if you're not apologizing, just to acknowledge something is really important. If you need to apologize, that's a whole other session. We'll talk about that, but in a different episode. But the acknowledgement of I hurt you when I said that. And I don't want to hurt you, right? I see that you're hurt. So acknowledgement is key. It's a very practical way. You can practice that muscle. You can practice saying, I get it. I see what you're talking about. I hear you. Oh yeah, tell me about that. So, and tell me about that leads me into the next thing that I wanted to talk about in the ways that you can really tangibly demonstrate that you care about somebody. And that is to be curious. So, when we're talking about acknowledgement, if you can acknowledge someone because you're going along with them and you get it, then do that genuinely. But sometimes you're in a conversation with somebody and you really don't get it, right? And you really actually maybe thinking they're kind of out of their minds, or that maybe you totally disagree with them, or maybe you even think that what they are thinking is vile, right? So you don't really actually feel like saying, I get it. I hear you. Yeah, right with you on that. So what can you do instead? I mean, you care about this person, but maybe you don't agree with what they say. And let's face it, even if you don't care personally about this person, they are another person on the planet. And so that means that they're worthy of respect as a human being, however you feel about their ideas. So something you can do in that kind of a situation is you can do something like, you know what? I'm not sure we agree on that. Tell me more. What are you thinking about that? Tell me, I don't get why you're coming from this angle. Can you tell me more about that? I don't understand why you believe what you believe on that. How do you think you came up with those beliefs? Now, the only way that this curiosity works is if it's genuine, right? Like if you really actually want to hear how someone has the ideas that they have. And then you can actually ask for more information. You can start to get a sense of who that person is, why they think the way they think, and maybe you can get to the point of being like, hey, Okay, I get it. And that doesn't mean you agree with them. That doesn't mean that you know you are right there in lockstep with them. But it does mean like I get where you're coming from, and I've taken the time and the energy to do that because I care about this relationship. I care about you, and that is how you can demonstrate that you care about somebody in a really tangible way that often can land so beautifully, because all of us want to be heard. All of us want to be listened to. All of us want to be seen. And the fact is that it's one of the best gifts that you can give to anyone at any time is to actually be with them, to acknowledge them and what they're talking about, what they're in, what they're processing, what their lives are like right now. And then if you need to, or if the next logical step is to be curious. Be curious about what's going on for them. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here with me on Facebook Live. Please like this video, share this video, sign up and like my page, and I will be back tomorrow with you. So it's Ann O'Connor from Metamorphics signing off.